Good morning, everyone. CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, has always been a showcase for the latest in television technology, and that includes larger screens and a TV that doesn't even need a screen. Daniel Bacchus gives us a look.
New televisions are back at CES and in a big way.
How do you sum up what you're seeing in terms of televisions for 2022?
Well, the thing about TVs this year is that they're getting bigger and brighter and actually more expensive.
CNET's David Katzmeyer says that includes this 97-inch LG OLED TV. There's no price tag yet, but a previous 88-inch version sold for $30,000.
The nature of OLED is that it's a self-emissive technology, meaning it needs no backlight like an LCD. So that means movies really pop.
TCL is revealing a 98-inch TV that uses a different QLED technology for around $8,000. The good news, the smaller the screen, the smaller the price tag.
We've seen some OLED TVs, the smaller ones, like 48-inch sizes, down under $1,000, which is very new for that category.
It's really easy.
Samsung is changing controls for TVs. Last year, the company introduced a solar-powered remote. This year, there's a new version that can stay charged with Wi-Fi.
They are saying that it can harvest RF waves from like your Wi-Fi router and use those to recharge the battery in your remote.
Samsung is also making TV more portable. The $900 freestyle projector can place entertainment or gaming just about anywhere. LG believes the future of TV viewing could be relaxing in a high-tech recliner with a curved display that rotates. And curved screens could make riding a stationary bike feel more immersive. These are just concepts for now. It's not clear if or when they will actually hit the market. Danya Bacchus, CBS News, Los Angeles.
All right, if you have ink, you're not alone. It's estimated about a third of Americans have tattoos, and the inks used to make them are mostly unregulated here in the U.S. But in Europe, officials want to blot out what they call dangerous chemicals. Ian Lee reports.
French tattoo artist Tintin uses a rainbow of colors to make his mark, but a new European Union law aims to cap his creativity by restricting what he can use.
If we don't have any colors or any ink to work with, what are we going to work with?
Starting this week, EU regulators are banning 4,000 chemicals commonly used in colorful tattoo inks and permanent makeup.
The protection of the public health of the European citizens is our primary concern.
Officials say many of the inks can cause health issues ranging from skin irritation to reproductive problems and even cancer, and argue the tattoo industry had time to prepare.
For many of the chemicals which have been banned, there are actually substitutes.
But alternatives for some of the most popular inks are in short supply. Tattoo artists worry this could deal another blow to parlors already struggling from the pandemic.
Our position about this stupid law is like to fight against it.
Tintin believes the tough new rules will force folks to go to the black market to get the colors they want. Ian Lee, CBS News.
The tattoo industry argues there is no hard evidence directly linking tattoos with cancer. All right, a little sweat equity, a little trust, how two groups are finding their way to each other when mid-morning returns. A New Jersey school is trying to bridge the gap between police and a student body that often distrusts those on patrol. Meg Oliver has more on the trust-building effort that's going on in the CBS series Unifying America.
It's a grueling day of competition. From pedaling and punching to swimming, and it's all about trust. The day started at the crack of dawn at St. Benedict's Prep in Newark.
So what we're going to do is pair people up.
Where a new partnership was born between students and the New Jersey State Police.
Raise your hand if you feel nervous when you see a law enforcement officer.
In an effort to break down misconceptions, the school pairs students like 16-year-old Seth DeMatas with Trooper Mike Gunther for a day of intense bonding.
Seth, when you first met your partner, what was your first impression?
He's a little bit smaller than me, of course.
Smaller, but the 5'7" trooper can bench almost twice his new partner's weight.
Do you trust law enforcement?
Not as much, no.
Why not?
Because of the recent stories and basically the influence that I'm growing up in as a dark-skinned male and a tall. I'm not programmed to trust the police.
When you hear that, how does that make you feel?
That's why we're here today. You know, we're here to build those relationships with the community.
I am unbelievably proud of all of you.
It's a relationship Headmaster Father Edwin Leahy wants to nourish to improve the fabric and future of their community.
What are you hoping your students walk away with today?
I hope that they talk. Kids talk to kids in their neighborhood and say, you know what, they're not what you think they are. And I hope that the police begin to think about some of these kids that they've encountered who have a face and a name when they have to deal with somebody in a difficult situation.
A face and a name, and a family.
A face and a name, brothers and sisters, parents or children, yep, all of that. 2, 3.
An exhausting experience that hopefully helps strangers continue seeing each other as partners.
This morning, they came up to you and put their arms around you. How did that make you feel?
It was awesome. It honestly was probably one of the highlights of my career in a very long time.
Meg Oliver, CBS News, Newark, New Jersey.
In a time when this notion can seem so, the nation rather can seem so divided, two people from two different parts of the country show us there is far more that unifies us. Here's CBS's Janet Shamlian.
Alabama's Tuskegee News has never had a journalist like Amy Miller. For one thing, Amy lives more than 1,000 miles from Tuskegee.
Hey, Guy, how you doing?
And journalist Guy Trammell, with whom she shares a twice-monthly column.
When you're sharing the stories, you're actually getting to know each other.
I had this idea anyway about doing a column from a white perspective and trying to match it with somebody doing it from a black perspective.
Color Us Connected also runs in the newspaper covering Amy's community, South Berwick, Maine. Her idea, after the mostly white New England town became sister cities with the predominantly black southern city. Tuskegee welcomed South Berwick residents to visit as part of the exchange. Hospitality returned in Maine.
What has this relationship meant to you?
This is one opportunity to actually bring people together. Instead of a divided states, we're the United States.
There's no politics in the columns. Guy and Amy simply share a slice of life from their perspective. A black man in the South, a white woman in the North.
So now we feel like we're walking together towards the progress we want to make in this country.
Once you move from communication to relationships, something real can take place, and that's what's happened here.
Two communities finding common ground. Janet Shamlian, CBS News, Tuskegee, Alabama.
When we come back, writers find one way to communicate is through social media. Mid-morning, we'll be right back.
Simple. Next time you feel agitated because you're falling back into past patterns,
his words powerful and insightful.
Remember that simply being aware that you are repeating the past is a sign of progress.
And are resonating with the millions of people following him on social media.
So we're in Prospect Park, which is where you started writing.
I would spend so many precious quiet moments here just trying to, one, figure out my life and just figure out what I was actually understanding about myself.
He likes to call himself an explorer, not a teacher. His latest New York Times best-selling book lays out how to find clarity and connection, something he struggled with for much of his life.
I never wanted to admit to myself that I actually felt pretty sad and depressed inside.
What was the rock bottom moment for you?
Just partying way too much, doing too many different drugs, and just pushing myself way too far. I felt like my life was like slipping from reality. So I took the drugs, I flushed them down the toilet, and from that day forward, that's when all of the honesty started.
He says Vipassana meditation, which means to see things as they really are, changed his life. It's now the biggest part of his identity and backbone of his work.
Meditation made me realize that I don't need to cause myself this extra mental pain.
The moment you allow what happened to strengthen you, you win.
Vulnerability and pain are also at the center of Delia's work.
I was at the threshold of taking my own life. I was in depression, coming from back-to-back domestic violence partnerships. It was a lot, and I didn't know how to express that pain, and I didn't know how to stop down spiraling. And so breaking that cycle for me was the turning point. So many of us come to our higher selves through pain, through that portal.
Delia has amassed more than 500,000 followers, doing what she loves as a spiritual writer.
What's it like for you to be back at the beach, a place
You like to write. Feels like home.
She encourages people to vibrate higher daily, aptly the title of her new book.
Yeah, it just means that day after day that you have this commitment and your actions are an affirmation. They're a meditation. They're offerings to this commitment to live at a higher level. Just remember who you are and remember your practice.
It seems like for a lot of people, part of the practice now is going to Instagram, to writers' spaces like yours, and looking at it and feeling inspired for the day.
Absolutely. Like getting messages from people saying that I was gonna give up, you know, your words help me. This right here, it lets me know that I'm doing my part to help the world vibrate higher in some way.
There are now hundreds, if not thousands, of accounts on Instagram that boast positive messages. And while many of these writers have secured book deals through their success, the underlying goal and hope is simply to help other people find their happiness from within.
You talk a lot about happiness doesn't come from a relationship, a job, your family. It comes from yourself.
Yeah.
Can you help people understand that idea?
A lot of happiness, it has to be cultivated from within. You loving yourself, you being aligned with your values, and you also having a deep appreciation of impermanence. I think a lot of the times the mental struggles that we have are because we just reject the fact that things are constantly changing. Life is this constant movement of change that we don't really have control over.
Do you think that's why your writings are speaking to so many people right now?
Absolutely. I mean, the world is in massive transition. Everything's changing. There have always been problems historically that people had to deal with, but now we have a greater amount of accessibility in regards to accessing tools that can deeply heal ourselves, and that's what's always been missing.
Jamie Yukas, CBS News.
All right, when we come back, remembering Betty White. Mid-morning, we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. It happened New Year's Eve and it shocked us all, the death of Betty White. And it was just a few weeks shy of her 100th birthday. With Mo Rocca, we look back in laughter.
By the time I got to high school, the kids had made up this really mean nickname for me just because I had hairy legs. What'd they call you? Rose with the hairy legs.
As long as there's been TV, Betty White's been on it. As she told Katie Couric,
if you have one good series, you know, it's a blessing. 2 good series is unusual. 3 is, where do you get privileges like that? I taste it every minute.
That's why you're always avoiding me, because you know if you get too close, you're afraid the little pilot light of desire that flickers within you might turn your whole oven on.
beginning in 1973, White portrayed happy homemaker / man-eater Sue Ann Nivens on The Mary Tyler Moore Show.
She was an obvious choice because she's so gifted. She was not an obvious choice because she's antithetical to the character.
James L. Brooks was the show's co-creator.
Oh, my poor baby.
There's a great bit where Sue Ann pulls out a collapsed souffle, and then she closes the oven door with her knee.
I just remembered it as you said it, yeah. She was inventive. I think there was less direction of her than almost anybody. She had it all. I think she could have been a tremendous dramatic actress if she wanted to.
In 1985, Betty White did a 180 and played lovably dim-witted Rose Nyland on The Golden Girls.
I should have said no to the Miss St. Olaf beauty pageant. It was 1951. That was the first year they let humans enter, too.
And in 2010, White co-starred with Wendy Malick in the TV Land series Hot in Cleveland.
Canoga Falls is naming the town square after me.
Wow, that's great.
Oh, did Canoga Falls lose a bet or something?
I turned 60 on Hot in Cleveland when we were working together, and she was on the cusp of her 90th at the time. And I looked at her life and thought, oh my God, there's a whole other act ahead of me.
White's career in television predated television itself. Months before the medium was introduced to the public at the 1939 World's Fair, 17-year-old Betty appeared on an experimental transmission in Los Angeles. Off-screen, White had 2 great passions in her life, including animals of all kinds.
Oftentimes people would come up to her and say, oh, I want to show you a picture of my kids. And she'd say, oh, great. And when they would show them pictures of actual children, she would look so disappointed and say, oh, they're children. She was so hoping for a little laugh.
The great two-legged love of her life was her husband, password host Alan Ludden. She was a contestant, and he, soon enough, popped the question.
I said no for a year. I wasted a whole year of time we could have had together. I might have been a pretty good game player, but I was a dumb lady.
What were she and Alan Ludden like as a couple?
Tremendously loving towards each other. I mean, they were precious to each other.
Why, Betty White.
Why, Alan Ludden?
Well, it's nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
When I look on YouTube at the game show, you can just see them, how much they just like each other. They're such
Adored. I think adored is the word.
After Ludden died, White kept on working, hosting Saturday Night Live when she was 88.
Live from New York, it's Saturday night!
Something Wendy Malick credits to her unfailingly positive outlook.
I remember somebody coming up to her once, I don't remember who it was, and said, "You know what I hate?" And she said, "No, and frankly, I don't care to know." And that was pretty much Betty. She didn't want you to dump your dark woes and worries and angst, and she just wasn't interested in that. It's like you can always find something to be happy or grateful about, and she worked very hard at that, and that was her credo.
Why is she so beloved?
Betty was a deeply good person, something of a higher quality about her that I think everybody sensed. We all kidded around and palled around, but we treated her a little differently, I think. There was something special about her.
I'm honored to be able to say a few words about how truly wonderful she was, because sometimes you're asked to do these things and you have to sort of pull out the good parts and leave the rest behind. With Betty, there's no leaving the rest behind. It's all good.
White worried that people were sick of seeing her on TV. She even speculated this for her gravestone.
At last, she's gone. She finally got off.
But even at 99, Betty White left us wanting more.
Rose, it's not that funny.
I know. I think I better keep the lid on this paint thinner.
And when we come back, a look at the life of another legend in Hollywood. We pay tribute to Sidney Poitier when we come back. All right, we're back. We told you recently about some research that shows Instagram can have a negative impact on mental health and body image, especially for teenage girls. Well, now a growing community of writers and poets are trying to turn the platform into a force for positive change. Jamie Yukas introduces us to two authors who are helping their millions of followers see light during dark times.
Diamonds form under pressure.
We normally come together with many unresolved issues because healing simply takes time.
Whenever you feel crushed, under pressure, or in darkness, you're in a powerful place of transformation and transmutation.
Diego Perez, who uses the pen name Young Pueblo, and Leila Delia live on opposite coasts, but are connected through a community of authors turning the page on what it means to be a writer.
We must continually outgrow who we have been in order to continually develop into who we were created to become.
They both use social media to spread positive messages of hope and self-discovery, gaining power through pain, and musings of what it means to love yourself.
The way I write is from the heart and from the soul, and so the fact that people are gravitating to that message, that inner calling, a lot of people are looking for another way of being in the world.
Misery is going out of style. People are tired of being miserable. You know, you can have money, you can have beautiful things in your life, but if your mind is constantly reacting, it's very easy for you to ruin things for yourself.
Young Pueblo's post.
All right, we're back. Legendary actor Sidney Poitier, one of the last surviving stars from Hollywood's golden age, has died at age 94. Michael George looks back on Poitier's career of breaking through racial barriers on the silver screen.
Sidney Poitier was an award-winning actor, but also played the role of a Hollywood trailblazer. He was the first prominent black movie star, and he didn't shy away from roles that took on the issue of race.
Come on. Why you black? Go ahead and say it.
Poitier was raised in the Bahamas on his father's tomato farm. He quit school as a teenager and eventually landed in New York, where he found work as a dishwasher. His first acting audition was at the American Negro Theater, but the producers laughed at his accent. Undeterred, Poitier worked on his speech for months and eventually made it to the stage.
All right, let's get them in there.
In 1950, he got his big break in Hollywood and soon rose to stardom as a dramatic leading man.
But you think of yourself as a colored man. I think of myself as a man.
In 1964, he became the first African American to win a Best Actor Oscar for Lilies of the Field. That was followed by a string of hits, including his role as the fiancé of a white socialite in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner.
Mom, this is John. He thinks you're gonna faint because he's a Negro.
I'll take that.
And his legendary role as Detective Virgil Tibbs in the Heat of the Night. In the 70s, Poitier started working behind the camera, splitting his time between directing and acting for the next 3 decades. In 2002, he was given an honorary Oscar for his life's work. That same night, African Americans won for both Best Actress and Best Actor.
I came here at a time when this Hollywood that you know was not the Hollywood here when I arrived.
And in 2009, the actor who helped bridge America's racial divide received the Medal of Freedom from America's first black president. Michael George, CBS News.
Truly a class act there. Well, we're all out of time. We will see you back here tomorrow. Have a great day.